here's the elevator pitch, or here's what, for me, is the things that really stick out to me that I think it is just really phenomenal. So it's an intuitive framework that makes it easy to organize your code. So coming from a few years ago, writing jQuery applications it's like, where does my code go? Like, what semblance of like model view controller do you have? How many people here have actually tried to write a web application just using jQuery? I mean, how many people loved doing that? I mean, no one. I mean, it's really easy to just, it turns into just spaghetti. And so having a place where you can start to put things in their place, it makes sense. Even having, this is where DOM manipulation goes. This is where you should manipulate the DOM and the directives. That really kind of makes sense to me. And not only should you do this, but we're going to make it easy. And so I'll get more into that when we talk about directives. So this is not really sexy per se, but testable code makes it easier to sleep at night. I mean, how do you know your application really, really works? Just because it doesn't break, that's not really something that I would personally bet my life on. And so having code that you have good test coverage it makes it easier to put new features in. And I think it really hedges your bet about getting a call from DevOps in the middle of the night being like, this thing totally just crashed, like whatever. I think testable code and the fact that AngularJS was written from the ground up to be testable, and you'll start to see that everything that we do in Angular kind of has a hook back to testability. That was the core foundation when they wrote AngularJS. Two-way data binding literally will save you hundreds of lines of code. I've seen apps that were just bloated with jQuery callbacks. On this, do this. On this, do this. Bind this. Hover, do this. And taking that code and squashing it down is, first of all, when you're not writing code, you're saving time. If you're billable, is that you're making more money. If you're on a project base, you make more money. And it just gives you more time to do other things besides writing boilerplate code. Templates that are HTML means that you already know how to write them. And so that is a big consideration when you start to look at AngularJS in comparison with other things, is who else outside of your developer kind of vertical within your team is going to be contributing to the project? Who are your individual contributors? Do you have designer types that are going to be doing layout? Not being able to take a layout that's done in HTML and CSS, pull it in, and hook AngularJS into that is really powerful. Not having to hoist on a new dialect or make them do something different outside of their normal workflow that is a huge win for the team and individual contributors where you have a designer type. Like, for instance, at Web Founders, we had a guy who all he did was Sass, an HTML layout. But he was able to do his thing. We'd get a layout, and we wouldn't have to do anything with it. Right out of the box. We would use it. The same thing comes with JavaScript. Data structures that are just JavaScript make it really easy to integrate with other things. So doing Rails, for instance, I've actually taken my data models and exported it as JSON, then consumed it with Angular, and it worked right out of the box. There is an application on iOS that came out called Weathertron. It's just this gorgeous data visualization app. The gentleman who wrote that did that in ClojureScript, and he realized, I'm not getting what I need from the UI with ClojureScript. What are our options? And they realized, like, oh, AngularJS just uses JavaScript. We don't have to do anything. We can defer the UI bits of this app into Angular and consume them and hit the ground running. And so not having to wrap your models in kind of these proprietary data types that's one less step, and it just makes it just closer to other things. You can just take your JSON, bam, your JavaScript objects, bam, you're good to go. 99 problems, but scope ain't one of them. Scope in JavaScript is, I think, one of the weakest parts of the language itself. And JavaScript, I think that's something that a lot of people write a lot of kind of hacky things around to kind of work around that. Angular solves that problem by, with their scope object, creating kind of this ironclad perimeter, which makes it easier to actually integrate as a whole, because you do get a perimeter around not only your Angular application, and so you can actually integrate it into other things. So if you have a legacy app, and you're like, I want to work Angular into this application, it's not an all or nothing proposition. They're not going to go and just blow up your global namespace. You could work an Angular application into one div into that page, and then start to expand out. That's really powerful. To take an existing application, I mean, let's face it, guys, like, legacy applications are there. We have to deal with them. They're not pretty. Having a clear path to start to integrate these modern web technologies and not blow things up, the less pain, the better. And so having the perimeter, and then also having your scope perimeter, where it's like, everything in here, it's not going to bleed out. I don't even think about scope in Angular. So I've got a lot of problems, but scope ain't one of them. So this is a web trends graph that we pulled up yesterday. So not only is Angular extremely powerful and easy to use, and it has all these really nice features, 1,000 howling coyotes cannot be wrong. This is Angular, the web trends for Angular over the last year. The big thing is, you may not be able to read every single label here, but if you see this blue line, the one thing that you need to know is that it's going up rapidly, which that means you have a greater community, a more vibrant ecosystem, and more resources to help you solve real problems. I mean, I think that's where Rails really excelled over a lot of other frameworks. The community was phenomenal. It's like, I can't tell you how many times it's like, I want to do this in Rails. It's like, oh, well, this gem has already been written by somebody. That's a big plus. So it's not just about the framework, but it's the ecosystem and the community surrounding that particular technology that really makes it strong. And so I look at this and I think this is really indicative of where Angular is, but where it's going, is that the interest is phenomenal because it's a very thoughtful framework that allows you to solve real problems. This is a graph that I think is fairly astute by my friend Ben Nadell. And so this is kind of like the Angular learning curve. We'll probably experience this today. You're like, that's pretty cool. What the heck? I can't believe how easy it is to do this. This makes no sense. Oh my gosh, I'm totally going back to Backbone. This is phenomenal. I'm going to get my resume brushed up. This is pretty cool. The most awesome framework ever. And so that is the curve that I went through. It was just kind of this cool, wow, And I eventually arrived at this conclusion, like, this is really powerful. This is amazing. But the thing is, I've been doing Angular for 1.5 years, and it still absolutely delights me. There's times where I'll write Angular, and it'll absolutely boggle my mind how well it works. Even after almost 2 years, I think that's really neat when a framework is so powerful that it'll still impress you after 2 years.